welcome to episode 14 of the Mind and Muse podcast. As usual, I am coming to you from the western side of the island of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean. I am Caroline, your host, and in the small town called Aguada, I live with my husband and my husband's dog called Snoopy. And from time to time, basically bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, every 15 days or 17 days, somewhere in that range, I come to you and I share with you the crafty side of my life, which includes a lot of crocheting, barely, but very rarely some knitting. It's coming out more frequently now that I try and felt. I really enjoy needle felting most of all. I have tried wet felting in the past, but mostly I enjoy needle felting. And almost never in my recent podcast have I sewn, but I can sew, and every once in a while I will maybe sew up a project bag or something like that to gift, but it's not as frequent as all the other crafts. So thank you for stopping by. Thank you for pressing that watch button and for wanting to come and spend some time with me while I talk to you about my recent work, my recent completed makes, and some things that I have in the planning. And in between all of that, just a little bit of life update so you know that I'm a real person and that I just don't prepare this to convince you that I'm doing things. So yes, let's get on with the crafty side of my life. Let's continue on to what I have been working on, because I am not today sharing with you anything that I'm actually wearing. I haven't completed anything this week that I could wear with you, and I didn't plan well enough to actually put on something that I have made in the past. So let me share with you some of my works in progress. I will not mention all of them, just a couple of the ones that I have advanced most on, because I have been a little bit monogamous, trying, well, I can't be monogamous if I work on 3 things, right? I have been more dedicated to only some of those projects and have abandoned others. My Strictly sock have receiving almost absolutely no dedication. It's just that I can't do this. I have mentioned to you in the past that it is not in my possibilities to watch a dance program and crochet at the same time. So I've been having to cheat or bend the rules a bit, which is also not in my nature. As some of you know, that my background is a mathematics professor. In the years before becoming a mathematics professor, I was actually a school teacher, and I taught grades from anywhere from 4th grade up to 12th grade, and so cheating is not allowed. And so I just couldn't bring myself to break all the rules enough so that I would have the time necessary to work on my socks. So I haven't worked on it any more than the last time, maybe? No, I think I'm a little bit more. I got up to the point where, for example, I had my heel, finished my heel, and this is a short row, crocheted short row heel, and I had just about begun again. Notice here I went back to my main color, just about that. And then I just couldn't. There's some things that I could not do while watching. I also got upset because the YouTube snips and bits that they were putting up never had the judging, and I actually wanted to see. I think that is one of the most interesting parts of the show. I mean, the dancing is great, but it's also fun to see the judges and how their take to each of the dances, and they rarely shared that on the YouTube, so I think I just gave up. Strictly lasts until January, so there's still lots of time to get those socks in if you really want to do this. I, at the moment, am undecided, so I'm going to give it a break and continue with other things that are more urgent, because I probably will take this with me to New Hampshire because they're small projects and they fit easily in a suitcase. But for now, they are not being worked on. Okay, something that you did see in the previous episode that I had started, and I probably wasn't able to talk about it in with a lot of detail in terms of the name and all that, because I had forgot to bring the printed pattern with me. But this time I didn't forget. It's living in my autumn project bag, my Snoopy bag, and you'll also know me and know this is one of the bags that I made that I am a fan. And so I think this was one of my first trips to Joann's when I went to the States, and I just love that fabric. So yeah, Snoopy is with me for this one. And this were the boots that I was working on last episode it's a free pattern from the Make and Do crew. And let's say these are something I couldn't tell you the last time. I couldn't show you this, the Breckenridge boots. I believe Breckenridge is in Colorado, and I think Jess is from there. So well, you can go to her blog and see the details if you're the type of person that likes to read about how people decide on the names or of their projects, or where they get their ideas from. She's got a fantastic blog at makeanddocrew.com where she writes about all the things that she does. These patterns are free on her blog. You can, for a little bit, a small price, you can purchase the printed version, and I usually feel more comfortable. I know it's a terrible waste of paper, and I have tried to reduce the amount of patterns that I print out, but I just always feel so much more comfortable working from a written pattern than working from the computer screen. It's just, I guess it's the pain where the screen is always turning off, and I have to juggle back to where I was. Well, whatever the reason, I did print out this pattern. Specifically, she has a lot of her, all of her patterns are free, I believe, most of them, if not all, most of them, on her blog. And they're posted to the blog, so they're not in PDF on the blog. They're just posted directly to the blog, and you can get an ad-free pattern by paying a small price, and she has those on different sites. The reason I purchased this one, even though I have made several of her shoes before, was because I wanted this ruler that she prints out. I thought it would make my life easier. The ruler, what it does is that you cut, I think it takes 3 of them to fit around the flip-flop, and you actually mark your holes at equidistant around the sole of the flip-flop. And I wanted to see if it was easier with this. The way I usually do it is I usually just take a tape measure, one of the flexible tape measures that they use for sewing, and I put it around and I mark off a 1/2 centimeter all the way around, and I just wanted to see if this was a little easier. So that's the main purpose why I printed it out, because I wanted that guide. But anyway, these are the boots that I was making. She made her boots with Lion Brand. What is this called? Wool Ease Thick and Quick, and she suggests the use of the bonus bundle, because the bonus bundle has a larger skein. It's got, I think, 200 grams in it, and she says you would need 2 of those, so that's about 400 grams, and that's about from between 300 and 350 yards total of the main color, and very little of some smaller colors, of some secondary colors. But I had began the boot with a different yarn, and it was, I realized, thinner than the Lion Brand Thick and Quick, and so I pulled it all back and I started a new one using the Thick and Quick, because I realized that I had purchased a large amount of this yarn from somebody who was destashing on Ravelry, and they were selling it dirt cheap, postage included, and so I think I bought maybe 12 or 14 skeins. Dawned on me that I had all that yarn there. Why wasn't I making the boots in the yarn that the designer used if I had so much of it? So I ripped back and I remade it. I remade it in this Thick and Quick She used the toffee color. I probably have I should have, but we all know that I'm not always doing what I should. But look, yes, I have it here. This is this one. I didn't buy it wasn't the super bundle, what's it called? The bonus bundle. This is just the regular one, okay? And let me see if it has a color on it. That's what I wanted to tell you, because she does hers in, what color does she use? She uses a toffee color way, which is like a light brown, but this one is unnamed. Can that be possible? No, of course not possible. It's charcoal. I'm just looking in the wrong place. It's charcoal. And I'm putting it upside down, so you can't read it anyway. And you probably couldn't read it anyway because it might even be backwards. But anyway, that says charcoal, $1.49. And so, what I had last week for you, I can't even remember. But it might have been the start of the boot. I think it was the start of the boot. What I can't remember, if it was the start of the boot already in the charcoal version, or if I was still using the original yarn that I was thinking about making them in. So I pulled back, I remade, and I know that on my last podcast I had both bases, so I might have been already in the charcoal, but I had only worked up one of the boots. This is called the base of the boot, and today, in addition to, well, I had them both at the same place at one point, and then I began completely working on the other one. So here is what at some point is going to be a finished boot. It's still not completely finished because I need to make here some they're not buckles, but what does she call them? I guess some straps that go around the toggles, and so that will hold this flap in place, because I wanted to sew the toggle straight through the back shaft and the front shaft, but I wasn't able to do that because then I wouldn't be able to get my foot inside of here. And so I decided to follow her per her instructions, or to sew the toggles in and then make these straps that go to the back shaft, and we'll keep them in place. Okay? And I have to say that I like them. I have to say that I like them, that I'm really proud of my make. Even though it's got issues, I am very proud of it. So the main yarn here is that Lion Brand Thick and Quick in the charcoal colorway. So they're not black, they're more like a gray, but that's very difficult. Even that dark gray is very difficult to work in if you don't have the right lighting, or if it's late in the afternoon or in the evening even. So yeah, I would understand why the toffee was a better choice. You could work on it any time of the day. The ridge that's created here, this edging, was created with that I told you in the last episode, that popular yarn that's called, what's it, fluff yarn, or, oh, I don't know. And I definitely won't be able to read this one because it's in Chinese, so I can't tell you that. But I think yeah, fur yarn is what. And I've told you that I've seen a lot of people on the internet use that to make the borders of their hats, and it looked really nice. So I thought it would look nice for the boot, and I am very happy to have chosen it. I think it looks really nice. It might just be me because of all the work that went into it, but I think it is nice. I bought 2 of them because I didn't know. Does it say how many? It's got 50 grams. So 32 meters. I wasn't sure if that was going to be enough because Jess in her pattern only goes around like the outsides of this, but I went on the inside, I went all the way down because, can you see that I'm looking at it the wrong place, but I went all the way down because I wanted to feel that warmth against my leg, and I figured that would help keep out the cold. And so, and also she slip stitches. She slip stitches this edge all around, and I single crocheted it. I'm not a good slip stitcher. My tension is never what it is supposed to be, and this yarn is very difficult to crochet with because you really can't see your stitches. Like if you're going to go on, if I were to do a second round, like I would find it extremely difficult. And I also wanted the extra fluff. So I figured if I used a larger stitch, I would have more fluff. And so I didn't slip stitch around, I single crocheted around. Okay, so that was the fur yarn that I used around. That was one. Another thing that I did incorrectly was that when you start the boot here, this part, the shaft at the back is just connected to whatever it is the back part that you previously crocheted. So you do the back shaft separately. And then when you go to do the front shaft, you need to surface crochet on this bottom part here, and then bring it up. And so I surface crocheted, but when I brought it up, I brought it all up in single crochet. And the instructions say to single crochet up to what is attached to your front, and then slip stitch across, and then single crochet again towards the back. And this was the most difficult part of the boot that I found to do, because there's a lot of guesswork in it, and a lot of estimation, and a lot of it's not all specific, like place your hook more or less 7 rows down and 1 inch from the edge of your back shaft. Excuse me. Go up on a diagonal, like a diagonal here, until you reach the other way. Go up on a diagonal here until you reach the front, then go across the front, and then go back down in the same slanting motion, the same slanting that you did on this side. Well, of course, that was going to be very difficult to do if you ever tried surface crocheting, and because of the fact that the back was already attached. Well, it wasn't comfortable. Not that it was difficult, but it wasn't comfortable. So I did everything in single crochet, and that's why you'll see that my ridge here is like thicker, probably, and it stands out more than her boot. But it didn't bother me enough because I don't like slip stitching. So it didn't bother me enough to redo it. Once I realized that I had done about maybe this much, once I realized that this was incorrectly done, I didn't want it back. So it didn't bother me that much. Something else that I learned, and it's just amazing how much you can learn from a new project, even though it's something that you have done before. One tip for getting your stitches nice and tight were to, instead of crocheting the way we habitually do it, well, at least the way I have a habit of doing it, where we go into this, we yarn over, go into the stitch, and yarn over our hook, but we yarn over our hook like going from back to front, like going over the hook and then pulling it through. Well, their recommendation is to keep your stitches tighter, then bring your yarn under and then over, under and then over when you pull. It's a little bit more difficult, and it made this very slow at the beginning. And because the position is not totally horizontal, you're going around in circles and on a fixed surface, it kept me slow at the beginning. But I got it in the end, and I do think that I have done amigurumi before, and I must say that these stitches are nice and tight. But there was a lot of effort, a lot of shoulder effort, because this is a very thick yarn. I don't remember if it's bulky or super bulky, but it is. I think it's super bulky. It was very thick. So, yes, Jess says to crochet this up in amigurumi style. And so that made it a slow make, but in a very suffered make. But yes, I think the final product does look nicer because of the fact. Now, at one point also, because the stitches were so tight, obviously, it made crocheting very difficult. The next round, maybe, or doing that surface crochet, I mean, how do you pick up in and up, you know, like as if you were sewing, going under and then coming back up when you don't really have a hole there. So yes, but I am happy with what I have up to now. Hopefully, my hope is that I leave for Florida on Wednesday morning, and I'll be there a couple of days with my daughter, Elizabeth, and then we will both travel to New Hampshire for Thanksgiving. My hope is to have these done so that I can face the Thanksgiving cold, the November cold of New Hampshire, more prepared than usual. So yes, those are my boots. They are the Breckenridge boots by Jess of the Make and Do crew, and I think they are a nice make. You need to be patient. I mean, they take some time. And oh, another thing was that she makes both boots, left and right, exactly the same. My feeling was that there was something odd about that, because I actually had to rip out both of my boots, the foot part of my boot, 3 times, because I couldn't get them the same. I couldn't get them the same. Let me see if I can, maybe I'll put a picture in to try and, so that you can actually see what I mean. But I don't know if you notice the curve up the foot from the toe to the boot. It's different. This has a curve that is a lot more drastic. It's a lot more noticeable. And this has a curve that is a lot more delicate. It's definitely less sharp than the other one. So I tore them back 3 times and it kept coming out the same. Finally, I decided that what must be happening is that, or it's the fact that both of the feet are being created with the same sequence of stitches, and maybe you had to mirror them or something like that. I did contact her and she said no, that it was designed to be made the same, so I made them the same, but they didn't come out looking the same. So after 3 times, I just decided that what must be happening is that maybe when I made my holes here at the beginning, they don't have the same amount, both feet don't have the same amount of holes, so I'm not getting the same amount of stitches around, and therefore when I'm decreasing, these decreases are sharper because I have less stitches than this. And that was the way I felt it, because I did at one point count the amount of stitches that were left over, and they weren't the same. I think on one side I had 30 and the other side I had like 34. So I played with it, reduced on some rows, decreased on some rows, didn't decrease on some rows, to see until I more or less got the hole, this hole the same width. And I just left it like that, even though I know they're not identical. This one is bigger. Another thing about that, how can there be so much to talk about one project when it's a free project, but you learn tons of stuff. I have made a lot of, if you've watched podcasts in the past, this is not my first flip-flop soled shoe, but you learn something from each experience. And I think I mentioned on the other episode that I normally make my flip-flop sole shoes using a flip-flop that is 1 size smaller than what I normally use. I normally take a size 8, so I would pick it size 7. But in this boot, I did 7 first, and like I told you the last time, it was too small. So I redid it using a size 8. And because of the fact that inside of here, and I didn't glue it because it has a pretty tight fit, inside of here I included this furry wool sole, so that I wasn't just stepping on the cold plastic in a house where my son keeps it nice and cool. I included this. And this, I believe, brought the foot up a lot and made for the difference in size. I believe it made the foot base a lot tighter, and since that first one had less stitches, it's a lot tighter. Because I did take out the sole and tried it on, and it's a better fit. But I'm not taking out that sole because I want my feet to be warm and cozy, so I'm just going to live with it. And I'm going to live with 2 boots that are not identical, and maybe try it out at another time and actually check the amount of stitches that I'm making to make sure that both the amount of stitches on both of my shoes are the same. I didn't check that the last time. So that's something else that I learned. It's all about the learning, and I usually like to pick projects where I can learn something new because it just keeps you on a continuum. But yes, I would like to make those again. She has another pair of boots called the cabin boots. I think I would like to make that also. And if I were to change something else, I think that when I was making this front shaft, I would have made buttonholes and put the toggles on the inside and just use buttonholes instead of having to now make some straps. But that's fine. It won't be that hard, I hope. Okay, so there. That's all about my boots. And the next time you see my boots, they will be on my feet. And probably, I don't think you can walk through the snow with them. But at least on those cold, windy days where it's dry and it's sunny, but it's cold, they can be used outside. So if that happens, I will, I don't know, do some photograph, a photo shoot and let you guys know. The second make that I wanted to share with you that is pretty much along its way is my add-along. By now you've heard about this so much that you do know that add-along is a sweater pattern created by Addie Day Designs. And let's see if I can get one of the better pictures you have seen it all, but I don't know why I insist on showing you them. I don't know, but anyway. Okay, so this is the add-along by Addie Day. That is her introductory picture, but it's not as easy to see all the features. This one maybe is a better take, though it is from farther away because they wanted more or less the full sweater. But you can see some of the features, like for example the short row design going down the sleeves, and the fact that the top part is designed horizontally, so you've basically got ribbing all across the top, and then it goes down to changes its stitch, and then you've got again ribbing at the end. So I had already made one of these versions that I shared with you, and I was very happy with, but my original version did not have a large, it had only 20% wool, and I wanted to make a woolly sweater because she suggests that. I wanted to see if there was a difference between the way the garment looked when you used a higher wool content, and boy is there a difference. I used, for my second version, I always say patons. I don't know if it's patons, maybe it's something else, but I always say patons, so I want to keep on calling it patons. Classic wool. It's just a pure new wool blend, so you don't really get the type of wool that's in there. And this is the color Latte. I had purchased this in the past when I started doing garments. It's a DK weight, because I wanted to have on stash some sweater quantities of yarns. But I had used some of this for a different project, and I knew that what I had left wasn't going to be enough to make, right? Because you can calculate the yardage, and I knew that my yardage wasn't what she was getting. So I began this already with a plan. Although I think my plan had its flaws, it was a flawed plan. If I were to redo it, I would do it in a different way. It didn't work out that bad. So what I did originally was Latte, that coffee color is not really a color that I think is very attractive on me. But I had only purchased it at the moment because it was the yarn that was available. It was on clearance, so it was also on sale. And so I just purchased it, but I knew the color really wasn't going to do anything for me. So I wanted to add a little bit of color to it. And I also wanted to incorporate some stash yarn that I had been hoarding forever. So what I did for the initial top part was I simply stranded together, this is actually the front over here, I simply stranded together that Peyton's yarn with a Harry Potter themed colorway that is a Molly Weasley. That's by Little Bean Loves Yarn, Kayleen. And I had 300 grams of this that I wanted to use, but it's fingering weight, so I couldn't use it to make the sweater. So I decided to strand it together to add a little bit of color to this coffee color. Obviously that did make it thicker because this was DK, and it's DK 100% wool, which when you wet it is going to fill in the holes a lot more, and so it's going to be a nice heavy sweater. In addition to that, I am adding the fingering weight, so I love this pop of color right here. It just made my day. It's the only pop of color all through the whole garment, but it just made me happy. But anyway, it ended up probably being a worsted weight, which was not what it was designed for. But I was okay. I said, well, I'll make the smallest size possible, and I went up 0.5 millimeter. So I used a 5.5 millimeter hook instead of a 5. Which, because I said, well, it's also going to affect the drapiness, and I do want it to be drapey. But I probably should have gone up to a 6. The reason I didn't was because I also knew that having a larger hook was going to use up more yarn, and I didn't want to do that either. Issues, problems, you know. So, this is what I have up to now. It has got, well, what happened, well, let's finish the story, right? Right about here where you can see, I ran out. I knew once I finished the yoke part, the top part, I checked how much of the Peyton's yarn I had left, and I knew that I wouldn't be able. Originally, I thought maybe cropped. Maybe I can just make it cropped and keep it that way. But who are we fooling? I mean, you know, I don't really use a lot of crops. Though I do like the style of a nice crop over a flowy dress or skirt, yeah, I probably have some stuff that I could have used with it. Probably could have pulled it off, but for some reason I was thinking about a big drapey sweater that would keep me warm in the New Hampshire cold and not style. So once I realized that I wasn't even going to have enough to make it cropped, I don't think I would have had enough to make it cropped. What I did was I stranded together then 3 yarns that I had in my stash. One was the Molly Weasley. I think she's still here in cake form. One was a version of Molly Weasley. It wasn't the same dye lot as the other ones that I had, so it had a lot more white in it and a lot less gray. I really liked the original version more than this one, but you know, that's the way it goes when you're dyeing by hand dyeing yarn. That was Molly Weasley, and to that I stranded this antique rose that was dyed up by my friend Melissa, who is, she used to be Melissa Dawn Wool Artist, and now she is Acorns and Willows on Instagram. And she dyes yarn mostly to sell locally in local yarn shops and galleries where she lives, but she does have an Etsy shop where she does post yarns that are available, and I saw some of this was still available. Do I have the, yes. This was her old label when she first started. It was Melissa Dawn Wool Artist. She has then since changed. This is Merino 80/20, Merino nylon. Kayleen's is 75/25. And to that, I wanted to like have a little bit of the coffee color, but I really didn't have any coffee. What I had was this like camel color that I have shown to you in the past, and I have used some of it in the past on other projects because it was dyed with red onion skins and rambutan stones or pits. And so I put those 3 together, and it ends up having like an orange color when I put those 3 together. And that was the bottom part. So once I knew that this Peyton's wasn't going to make even a cropped sweater, then I started doing, I used the instructions embedded in into the pattern for alternating skeins because she used variegated yarn. So I alternated the Peyton's yarn with the 3 strands of that merino all the way until I had no more of the Peyton yarns left, which was fortunately, I just kept on going until I used it all out, which was fortunately maybe about an inch or so more than what the pattern suggested for the length of this body, but I was fine with that. I didn't have a problem with that. And then, well, the only thing I had left to make this hem then was Molly Weasley. The antique rose and my onion, my camel colored onion skin. So this is what I'm using down here. Just Molly, just the 3 colors stranded together, but no, I'm not alternating anymore with the gray because I didn't, with the latte because I didn't have any more of it left. So I've got the front hem done. I still have a back hem to do. And I am hoping the back hem is a longer hem. It's a split hem, but the back is longer than the front. So I don't know if I should, but yeah, I'm going to give it a go. It's been a cool morning, but it's already getting close to midday, so it is getting hot. You don't hear the noise today because I don't have a fan. Okay. But I just figured that if I tried it on, you would be able. I did try it on last week, didn't I? When it was just it was just nothing. It was just, but let's see. Maybe I can get you to see some of that. Some of the design of the short rose makes on the arm that I wasn't able to show you the last time. And I'll stand up so you can see how it looks. And I can't show you the hem, so I will tilt this down a bit. There you go. There's the hem. So it's pretty long, and I think it's going to be longer because when I block it, it's going to stretch. It's going to relax, and it's going to be longer. And then if you consider it, the back is going to be more stitches. The back will be even longer. The back will be even longer here because it has more stitches. So, yeah, that's... Okay, you got the idea? Because I'm going to take this off. It'll be fine in New Hampshire, but it is not fine in Puerto Rico. Okay. Whew. Whew. If I was worried about my hairstyle before. Woo. Okay. There, but I really did want to show it to you, and I probably won't be the last time because I'm hoping that I'll have it done by the time I make my trip to the States, and I am hoping that I'll have all those ends woven in by that time, and also that I will be able to block it at my daughter's house in... Let me take a break and just fix his hair, okay? Well, that's as good as it gets, so we will continue. Is there anything else left to tell you about my sweater? Well, whatever's left, Clarissa and I are thinking about doing a podcast, a joint podcast in Florida, so that way I'll have some things to show you and talk about as I will have my boots finished, have my sweater finished, and so I will share an update on that. In the future me, the future me will share an update on that. So last but not least, the other project that I was working on was big project, and that consumed a lot of time, was my C2C Alpaca Love blanket. And it continues to consume a lot of time, but it has gotten not as much attention because I knew that I can't take the blanket with me to the States. So I was working on it maybe 1 row, 2 rows a day, but not as much as I've been working on these other 2 projects that I want to take with me on my trip. So I am going to show it to you before, I don't know, it's not really a lot done, but okay. One of the good things about it is I got to use this tote bag that I purchased from Pearl and Plum. after our trip to Edinburgh, I believe, or maybe before, I don't remember. Could have been before. She's been there several times because her daughter lives there, and so she picks up these towels and makes these great tote bags. And in that tote bag, I have been carrying my blanket. The blanket now, let's see. Jess of the Make and Do crew was interviewed by I know it's B Crochet. No, sorry, it's B Hooked. Just the capital B and the word hooked, B Hooked. I think it's Ashley. Her name might be Ashley. And she has a audio cast, a podcast, a true podcast. And she interviewed Jess, and the topic was all C2C. And they were giving hints on how to make the process more enjoyable. Specifically, yarn management was the hint that I was looking for. And it's the reason that I've actually listened to the audio cast. So one of her tips was to place the bobbins of yarn in a laundry basket with the yarn running through the holes of the yarn. So you have to have a laundry basket with holes so that the yarn runs through the holes of the laundry basket, and that will keep them separated, and so you won't have as much entanglement going on. And so I did that, and it did improve a bit, though I have to say anyway that I am dying to finish with all the color changes. I'll get there. Let's see. If the pattern is here, I can probably... the pattern has 7, I think. 7 pages of instructions, yeah. 6 pages of instructions. And so I have gotten through 1, 2, 3, 4 of those pages. I am currently on the 5th one, right? So here, I am at row 88. And so the color changes are less now, and if you see at the bottom of the page, it says, woohoo, no more color changes. Maybe you couldn't see that, but that's my goal. This is also a free pattern on her blog. It's pasted to the blog, so it's not PDF or anything like that. You can print out in pretty print, but you can also, as with all of her projects, get a printed version from any of the sites where she posts her patterns for a small price. And so she uses Lion Brand's Vanna's Choice. And I didn't have any of that on hand, and I have been wanting to work through my stash forever, so I just chose Red Heart, Super Shaver, and there's some Stylecraft DK, and whatever I had in my baskets. I did purchase the main color, because I didn't have any. I would never have that much acrylic in my stash. So I did purchase that. All of her recommendations are in the pattern, so I'm not giving away anything. But anyway, the last time I had just begun going up the neck of my... How does this go? This way? Well, it wouldn't matter, right? Because anyway, you're going to see it backwards on screen. So, I had just begun with the color changes for the neck. Okay. And now, stand up. I am pretty far up the neck now. And what's going to happen next is that pretty soon I'm going to be starting the head. So I'm way on to finishing my llama. And I'm way close to not having to do any more color changes. But that doesn't mean I'm way close to ending, because once the color changes are over and the actual llama is done with all of his borders, there are 2 borders to add to this. It has a double border, one in gray and one in mustard. And the mustard, you can't see mustard here because it's black and white, but the mustard is a pom-pom border. So that is time consuming. But at some point it'll be done. I probably imagine that I'm right about here. I'm right about there. So yeah, so I've just got to finish his head, and yeah, woo, it's getting hot. But luckily, it is getting hot, and I have finished sharing with you almost everything I wanted to share in terms of projects. I have talked to you about the trip that I will be making. Hopefully on that trip, we will be meeting up with Hannah of the Cozy Cottage Crochet, and maybe Kalisha of the Quirky Monday Crochet podcast, or I don't know if it's crochet, but it is a podcast because she does knit frequently. And that would be in Florida, and hopefully in New Hampshire, we will have some time where we could meet up with the KCACY podcast crew, right? That is Vivian, the mother and the knitter, and Allison, the daughter and the crocheter. We're putting it, on a flexible. We're not making plans written with blood or anything like that, because it is a holiday week and everybody's going to have family at home, and we don't want to interrupt that family meetup. But if it is possible, then we'll take some time and meet up with some good yarny friends that it's always nice to meet, especially during holiday seasons for some reason. So that'll be fun. Hopefully, it'll be fun. And I also wanted to mention that I had participated in a Christmas exchange project bag, Christmas project bag swap. And my partner was a lovely knitter and spinner from Kentucky. We exchanged boxes, and I received mine and she received hers. And so one of the finished products that I had to share with you already left to her, because it was a monarch butterfly, felted monarch butterfly that I framed, right, with using an embroidery hoop. And she said that she liked it. I shared it on Instagram, and I got a lot of lovely feedback about it. Even though it wasn't perfect, I couldn't get it to be, but it was symmetrical for some reason. A big step for me in terms of my felting skills, because I didn't believe I could make anything that delicate look pretty. And though it wasn't perfect, I do think the job was okay for a beginner. So I was very happy with the end project and the end product, and I hope that she will be so too. It's very nice to share our crafting with people that we know appreciate what we do, and so I think that in this case it has gone to a very deserving recipient, and I'm very glad that she was happy to receive that. So that was just another make that I wanted to mention before I leave. And this is the end. We have come to the end of this week's podcast, and I hope that you have found something that you have liked. I hope you have enjoyed sharing some time with me. And so if it has been to your liking, you may hit the like button below, and you may also leave a comment so that we can continue to share our ideas. Tell me what you're working on. Talk to me about what you like most from the podcast, or what you would like to see in the future. There's a new year coming up soon, and everybody makes plans and New Year's resolutions. What crafty resolutions would you like me to make? What crafty changes would you like me to make for this podcast? And just share your ideas with me. And part of what we do here is basically about that sharing. So if you know somebody who is into crafting and who you think would enjoy sharing some time with me, please forward them the link and allow them to participate in our community also. And I would be very grateful of you if you would do that for me. So in the time being, until we meet again, I will just tell you to please keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, and keep crafting. And I'll see you soon. Bye for now. All set up. Unruly hair. What is your hairstyle for today? Well, my hairstyle for today is don't comb your hair in a week, keep it in a ponytail, and then try and podcast without styling it. But that's okay. People are not here to see my hair.